Okay, hello and welcome back to High Desert Home and Garden. Today, well actually a few days ago, I've been on night shift so I couldn't do anything about it, but we received the ECM, or as Ford likes to call it, PCM, for my 925 F250 with a 7.3. This nifty little steel box right here. Now, this is taking, probably 3 weeks to get done, but considering the options, you could find a used PCM or ECM for I believe $400, and I could have had it in 2 days, and then the reconditioned ones ranged from $500 to $800. So I opted for the option to have that one rebuilt, which took 3 weeks to get it back from the day I dropped it off at the local parts store. And now it's finally come back. The cost of the rebuild, shipping included, from Nevada to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is where the company is that rebuilds it, was $151 and some change. Quite the difference. I cannot see the little stamped steel box being worth $300 to $500 for a replacement. So today we're gonna put it in and see what happens. I'm thinking it's gonna work though. Just a little more additional background. It had a P1283 code, which is an Ipr valve circuit failure. And the Ipr valve is pretty much like your governor on this thing, so without that it will not run at all. Moving on, I'll show you kind of what I got to do here. Now our little module goes down in that hole you can see there. It mounts in there. Pretty much all of the 90s Fords, doesn't matter what engine or anything else, they all mount right there, which is kind of not a real fun thing to do. This cover plate actually holds it in, and what I have found anyway, the best way to get it in is to unbolt your inner fender, fold it down out of the way, and there's your hole. Nice and easy to get to. Also, if you're wondering if your 7.3 has a power chip or something like that, which I can't really see in here, but there's a hole right there behind your parking brake assembly that you would pull off your parking brake assembly and install a chip. I'm not doing that because, well, I've done it before, and I kind of decided that with this 7.3 I just wanted to see how far it would actually go if I left it alone. I've had this thing for 4 years. I've put 45,000 miles on it, and this has been its first major, well, this is the first time it's really let me down for anything. I've done some of the injectors because they're at that point, and I did the upgraded clutch because it still had the original factory dual mass flywheel, and I'm just not a fan of that system, so I spent the money and did the Luck clutch with the single mass flywheel, which is a very wise investment if you haven't done that yet. That's about all I think for now. I'm gonna have to get to work. I'm gonna try and do this in stages so I can handle the editing a little bit better. That has proven to be my downfall for YouTube so far. Just a little information for anybody that is following the channel. We're still working on editing out the video for the bookshelf that I built. It's like I said, editing's been my downfall. Anyway, time to get to work on this project, get this all put in, we'll get it fired up and test it. Pretty sure it'll work though. Okay, back again here with the 7.3 liter PCM installation. Get the light so that you can see. You can see I've got it back where it's supposed to be, and the ECM connector back on it. Just a little bit more background on this. Try and get this where we can see it. You see that guy right down in there? That little 2 white wires in the connector. That is your Ipr valve. It's right in front of your factory fuel bowl. It's not very fun to get to. They make tools so you can take it out without removing the fuel bowl. I had a fuel leak anyway, so I went ahead and pulled the bowl. Got the inner fender bolted back in, and now we are ready for a test. Roll up the windows because this old girl's kind of noisy. It's an actual diesel engine. Whoopsie, I forgot something. Hang on just a second. I forgot to plug the Ipr valve back in. Or not the Ipr valve, but the the IAC injection actuate ICP injection control pressure sensor. Okay, now I have this Snap-on Ethos Pro scanner. I use it probably more so than most people do, so I went ahead and spent some money on one. Not exactly necessary if you're going to doing homeowner type stuff. There's lots of cheaper versions that'll give you a code. You know, that'll give you a code, and then you can look the codes up online. We'll check memory codes first. Yeah. Injector control pressure circuit out of range low. I caused that one. That's from me having the ICP sensor disconnected, so I could actually reach my hand down into the Ipr valve and connect it. And then the P0603 internal keep control module keep alive memory. That's just because it hasn't been connected to power, so its internal battery was dead, and that's pretty simple. So let's clear those out. Code's cleared, and then we will go to the key on engine running self-test. It says turn off AC and all accessories including auxiliary powertrain control, which it doesn't have. It says start the engine, allow to reach normal operating temperature. With some of the newer vehicles that is necessary. It won't allow you to run this test without, but this one it really doesn't care. So here we go. As this thing cycles through its test, it shuts down the injectors one at a time. It idles up like it's doing right now to test your exhaust back pressure valve, which is what makes these things whistle really bad when it's cold outside. It's actually closing a flap in the exhaust right behind the turbo to hold in the exhaust and heat the engine up faster, which is a pretty nice feature in comparison to some of the other diesels of this thing's time frame that took 30 miles of driving to ever reach operating temperature. This truck and this engine is a dinosaur by today's standards, by all means, but for its day it was very advanced, which is where most of the problems come from, because the electronics weren't all that great. If you can hurt a 7.3 liter diesel, mechanically hurt it, you did something wrong. I can pretty much guarantee that. Electrically, not so much though. So our key on engine running self-test got a pass. We're good on that. We'll go to the data display. And check things out. RPM is normal. It shows a diagnostic trouble code count of 1. I don't know what that is. We don't have an engine light on, so it's probably nothing to worry about. Exhaust back pressure 13 psi. That's got to do with the elevation here more than anything else. If you go down towards sea level, the higher the pressure goes. Injection control pressure is at 580 psi, give or take a little bit. They fluctuate some. That is normal. Injection control pressure regulator percent is at 12. That is normal for idle. Let's give her a little throttle and see what it does. Injection control pressure came up to 2400 psi, and the pressure regulator percentage gets up to 35. That's also within specs. Looks like I was right. We should be pretty much good to go on this. Now the fun part, putting everything else back together. So yeah, if you One thing I'll say for the plug-and-play programmers is they do come and will read codes on the engine. That's very handy. Some of them now, like Edge, I think makes one that comes with a little monitor that you can bolt to the dash or someplace where you can see it, and it'll give you actual temperature, pressure readings, and everything else. That's a pretty good idea if you're gonna have a non-stock 7.3. The quickest way to kill one of these things is to overheat it, and the factory Ford gauges, such as they are not known to be very accurate. And as you can see, let's see, I don't know if you can read the mileage or not. Yeah, you can. 188,324 miles. Pretty decent mileage for a truck of this age. It is actually 23 years old now, since the 18 models came out. And you know, all in all, it's been a really reliable old truck. It honestly hasn't idled this smooth since I've had it, so I'm kind of wondering, which, you know, the troubleshooting process of getting to the ECM actually being bad took me forever, because the Ipr valve itself didn't ohm test in spec, or well, I should say it was at the high end of spec, so I replaced that, which takes a couple of days to get the part, and this was an intermittent problem to begin with, so I pulled the entire engine harness out of it and inspected and repaired everything I could as needed. And then after we got all that done, it ran fine for a couple of days, and then it started acting up again. As I said, this was an intermittent problem, and finally got it to act up on with the scanner hooked up to it, and then began troubleshooting from there. Your Ipr circuit is controlled by what is called pulse width modulation. So shut this noisy old thing off. The best way to test pulse width modulation, I built this nifty little contraption here, which is the connector, an old connector for an Ipr, or for the Ipr valve, and I spliced in these two wires so that I would be able to actually hook my digital meter in line and test the pulse width. Now, to do pulse width, you have to have your, on this particular thing anyway, you have to have your meter set on AC volts, and then check between power and ground to that Ipr valve solenoid down in here, and you should have at idle about 3 volts. You go to full throttle, it'll jump up to 12 volts, and this is all AC voltage because it is actually alternating to control the oil flow to your injectors. So what I found is that here at the solenoid, it was dropping the pulse width. It didn't matter what throttle range you had it in, it would drop it. Okay, it would go from 3 volts to 0, 12 volts to 0, and anywhere in between. So the truck would just up and die. Now, the way I determined the ECM was bad, I came back here and back probed the ECM connector with it connected obviously, and found that it had the same exact issue right here at the ECM, and that led me to believe that our ECM was bad. You can ohm test harnesses and pin out, from the ECM connector to the connector at the valve at your suspect part, and they may ohm out okay, but that doesn't mean the wire isn't broken. That just means it's currently making good connection. So, with the engine running and these old 7.3s vibrate a little bit, I couldn't rule out the harness by doing a visual inspection on it and then ohming it out. So I came back here and back probed that. And in case you're wondering, the handiest back probe tool that I've ever had is a paper clip. And they're really cheap too. But this was kind of a long, drawn out process, but I'm happy to say it looks alright. We're going to have to take and do a road test once I get everything put back together on it, but it should work out, I do believe. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe for more. Thank you.